All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm happy to be here today with Cris Beasley. Cris is a multidisciplinary artist, polymath, and general metaphysician for the new era, a priestess, healer, and systems thinker whose work bridges myth, mysticism, and modernity. She is the visionary behind Convivvium, a soul family reunion to reweave the sacred fabric of society. With a background in tech design, AI, and product management, she now focuses on building experiences where people taste superabundance. Cris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Um, Great to have you. I thought I would initially start out by asking you about dragons and just dive straight into dragons because it's an affinity that we share. So I'm curious, what is the significance of dragons for you?
Well, sometime when I was living in San Francisco and learning how to connect with my intuition, I started hearing myself make these funny little noises when I would be out on a walk and I would stop and touch a leaf or smell a flower. And I was like, what is up with me? Man, this intuition work, it's weird, but I like it. I'm like, I think I'm happy. I think that's happiness that's coming through this little, like, almost childlike voice. And I started to have this mental image of what I thought at that point was a flying dinosaur. And I went, oh my God, this is like the Pee Wee's Playhouse Terry, the pterodactyl. And then one day in my mind's imagination, I was watching the little video and the dinosaur blew fire at me. And I went, oh shit, it's a dragon. And off we went. Off we went to the races. I don't know precisely when I started working on the Becoming Dragon card deck, the Oracle. I got very obsessed with tarot at a point when I was sure I should be looking for a job. And I did not want to be looking for another corporate job because I had burned out after doing a startup. Um, and I just couldn't. It was like dragging a dead body to try to get myself to look for another corporate job. I did half-heartedly apply for a few, but and I even interviewed for a few, but they were all like, "We think you're gonna be bored." I interviewed for Hulu, and they were like, "You're really something." I don't remember what word they used, but it was like, "You're a lot, but we think you'd be bored here." So they hired somebody else, which is, I'm sure, a good thing for their staffing retention numbers. Um, so the dragons were taking me out of corporate hood, social norms, following the path, the American dream nightmare. Um, and the deck, this is maybe a little too cute, but I really do mean it. That I almost don't feel like I made the deck. Clearly, I did. It was my hand who held the paintbrush and typed the little keys on the keyboard and set up all the art files and did every damn thing. But the deck made me in a much more substantial way. The teachings about emotional alchemy, how to use your power, how to step into your power, how to deal with your money wounds, how to deal with your sexuality wounds. Like, what do you do with all these uncomfortable, inconvenient emotions like envy and rage and fear? Like, what are they trying to be? How do you do that emotional alchemy process?
Amazing. And I'm curious, what do you make of these dragons that started coming to you? Do you see them as a psychological phenomenon, or do you see them as a literal, like literal beings who are, here with us? Like, how do you sense make that type of thing?
Man, the number one thing I'm gonna say is I don't know. I can only tell you some things that I have some different stages of my life that I have gone through and where I'm at now, but I don't consider any of it to be the ultimate reality truth. It's all just like it's all true and it's all just there. I don't know. I definitely was skeptical of the whole process. I mean, even for me to have what could be labeled clairvoyance. No, clairvoyance is the voices. Audience is, which is the one where you see? No, it is clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is where you have mental images in your head. That sounds really scary if you meet somebody on the playground. They're like, don't talk to a clairvoyance. Um, but then you're like, no, I just have a movie in my head. I'm a designer. I'm an artist. Of course, I have a visual imagination. Of course, I can see images in my head. How do you think I paint? Like I'm drawing something in my head before I'm drawing it with a pencil. Like it would be a very slow process if I couldn't see things in my head. So at the point that that became strong and it started to be videos instead of just still images, um, my consciousness was repairing itself, which is just the coolest thing. And I started to have greater and greater ability. I got smarter and smarter, which is exciting. That's what I hoped would happen when I was a smart little A plus kid. I was like, I hope you just get smarter the whole time. um, but leaning into the energetic gifts definitely opened up a lot more sensitivity. And then things get weird. Okay. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have had this experience that you start getting strange things happening in your awareness, in your consciousness, and you're like, I don't fucking know what this is. But this is what's happening. So I had a dragon inside me. I had a Kundalini awakening right about the same time. And my life changed forever. I had a sense of touch that got extended into being able to feel in people's bodies where their trauma was buried. I could sense far deeper into the body than the fingertips were actually sensing. So I was sensing energy with my fingertips. It just feels like touch, but the information is coming from so deep in the body that it can't be touch. It's more than touch, right? So things get strange. To answer your question of dragons, I literally do address them as entities. I call them in when I'm calling in the 7 directions. I include them in the 7th direction in the interdimensional, multidimensional. We've done north, south, east, west. We've done Father Sky, Mother Earth, and then 7 is where I put angels and dragons and all the stuff that I can't see. And I do address them and I call them in and I do my best to respect them. It's like it seems like a good idea to be respectful because those powers are very strong. And the archetype, even if I'm only speaking to an archetype, I'm only speaking to an archetype that is observed in every single culture.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you. And seems similar to how I would answer that as well. Like I don't really know, but when you're in the primal grips of these energies, it's like, whoa, this is nothing like if people just imagine you're kind of just having a thought in your mind or kind of an image in your mind of a dragon. It's like you can literally be, I mean, taken over by some of these energies. You mentioned Kundalini awakening. I kind of associate the dragon with Kundalini, and yeah, I experienced some kind of dark Kundalini awakening a couple years ago involving a kind of dark dragon spirit that, yeah, was a very, very intense experience. And I'm actually curious, do you have any sense of some dragons being like more benevolent and others being more malevolent?
I include in my 7 directions prayer very specific. The gods of Zoom have given us an exclamation point with our little emoji thumbs up. Um, I always bind the ones that do not. Like I call in specific dragons. I don't call in all the dragons. I call in the dragons that I know. I invoke 5 dragons that I know. And some other dragon shows up, I'll be like, very interesting. Who are you? I don't just let energies come into my field. And what I daily am doing is like I'm calling in the angelic energies as well. I'm saying like Saint Germain, calling in your violet sword protection, and I do I don't know, could be tantric, could be qigong. Like in the energetic realm, I do a clearing, a very big like sphere clearing of all the directions of and spins of energy and set a protection bubble around me. I also invoke my guardian angel, set a protection bubble around me. I call in all of the benevolent spirits, all others we bind, all others we bind, all others we bind. And so it is.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I kind of do that by often specifically calling in if I'm calling in some kind of guardians or something, it's like guardians aligned with the highest divine love or aligned with the innermost heart of divine love or something like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
do the same. Like all those who have blessings to offer this incarnation and the ascension process of Gaia, all of those we bind. Like I call in specific, not everybody who I name, I don't necessarily know the names of everybody that I need for that day. So I do that kind of catch all those who have blessings, all those who bless this incarnation and ascension process. Everybody else get out. And it's important.
hmm. What's your modeling of the ascension process and how it relates to descent as well, and kind of like how we seem to go through ascending and descending kind of undulations as the roots go deeper and the branches go higher, and how do you see that whole process?
I mostly use astrology to track those cycles so that I have a way of checking the clock, not just it's 2:16 p.m. in Oaxaca on Mexico City Standard Time. We don't do daylight savings. Not just that mundane, specific level of time, which is usually all we have the attention and awareness to bring to, but these long cycles of time, like let's look at Neptune in Aries. The last time it was at 0, what was the world up to with Neptunian themes of projections and spirituality? What were the shadows of that time? Neptune finished its watery business in Pisces in the end of the 1860s. 1861, boom, beginning of the American Civil War, boom, the Auto de Fe de Barcelona, where they burned a bunch of spiritualist books. That happened 6 months after that. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be really interesting because this is Neptune just went into Aries. No one alive on the planet has ever felt Neptune and Aries energies unless they're a time traveler or a very interesting being who's keeping the low profile. You'd have to be 166 to know anything about those energies. So those time cycles are super interesting, like the repeating of the karma of Atlantis, a much, 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 much longer time cycle, but it's all in our bodies. It's in our ancestral memory. It's in our mitochondrial DNA. It's in processes I don't even know how to name.
So what would we expect from Neptune and Aries, and what would we expect from the longer coming millennium or so?
Well, we could spend the rest of the week talking about that because what's interesting, obviously, is that last time Neptune was Aries in 1861, every other planet was in a different place, right? So the sky never repeats. You can't ever be like, okay, whatever happened on this day and this year, we're just repeating that. No, there's so many overlapping cycles. So Saturn is doing a different thing, blah, 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 blah. But long story short, not to make this an astrology podcast, is that we're birthing a new era. We're birthing a like a completely new identity. Um, Human design has a big cycle change in 2027. It's just this incredible ballet of the planets coming through and moving in. It's really wild how many planets are moving across what's called the world axis, 0 degrees Aries. You can think of that as we've completed a cycle. We finished the karma. Pisces, the 12th house, is the last underground unseen karma. And then you finished all of your homework. It's like coming to the end of a semester at your, like sitting for your final exams for your PhD or something, and all your classes, you're taking a bunch of final exams. And what's going to happen, we're not taking all of our final exams. We're taking like 3 major final exams. and we're going to fail all of them. We're going to fail, quote unquote, because we're going to retrograde. We're going to go finish those last anaretic degrees of the Pisces, which is checking everything of all 360 degrees of Pisces. Like, this is the exam. You have to know all the lessons of all 360 degrees of zodiac. And when you pass, then you go into the brand new level of those lessons. So we're going to fail on spirituality and maturity, Neptune and Saturn, Venus as well, relationships, relating. So Neptune, Saturn, and Venus are all, we're going to fail the exam, but it's not a disaster. If everybody's freaked out right now because we're going to fail, it is because we are going to fail, but this is a merciful universe. We're going to get the test is going to come back graded. We're going to know which of those lessons we didn't get. We can focus in and be like, okay, this, I need to study this more. I need to study this more. We'll retake the test. And then by mid 2026, mid next year, we will have cleared all of that final degrees of Pisces lessons and then be firmly in a very different energy. Like, the energy of the planet is going to be massive because all of the outer planets have changed signs in the last year, which, if you follow astrology, this is like, no one's ever seen this. This particular configuration is so unusual.
And what are the major characterizing qualities of the new era that you see being born through astrology?
Well, one of my favorite is Adrienne Elise. She does a podcast targeted at who she calls supernova souls. And it is about clearing the imprint of the catastrophe. If we go all the way back to Atlantis, if we consider that Atlantis had even substantially more advanced technology than we did, again, there's lots of Atlantis myths. This is another thing like dragons. Why does everybody have an Atlantis myth that amazingly lines up on some key points? How would you even manufacture such a thing? Why would you manufacture such a thing? Like, we don't take we don't take our legends seriously. We treat them as myths. We think myths, like, we've conflated myth and legend, right? Myth meaning a falsehood versus legend, which is our ancestors knew we were going to repeat the cycle and that none of us alive would have physically embodied, but it's stored in our bodies. This information is waking up in our junk DNA. The information that's in the like, do you really think the body is holding on to any excess crap? Every time do you know why you have an appendix? You were told that it's just extra baggage, right? Like, you don't need an appendix, do you? So many people don't know that an appendix has an incredibly important function. If you've ever gone and had very, very bad food poisoning and your body has had diarrhea for many, 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 many days in a row and has completely washed out your microbiome because it was infected, you were colonized by something nasty, it is your appendix that has a lovely little sack of good bacteria that it will sprinkle into your colon, into your intestines, so that you have the appropriate bacteria so you don't die. Kind of important, right?
Yeah, it sounds pretty important. Yeah. Um,
But we didn't know. The dissections of allopathic medicine, when they were teaching medicine, they removed all the fascia and put it in a tray and threw it away. We're like, don't worry about that. That's anything. Do you know how important the fascia is? If you were to remove every bone cell, every brain cell, every muscle cell, every organ cell, you would have a perfect copy of the entire body in the fascia. You would have a perfect copy. It is the mycelial connective. We don't fully know what the fascia does, but it's an essential aspect of the body. You can't just cut it off. It's that weird skin if you're a meat eater and you prepare your own meat at home. It's that, like, whitish thin thing that you have to cut off. That's very tough. That's fascia. super important. We just like the junk DNA is not junk DNA. It contains the memories of exactly what we need for this moment and transformation. My guides call it the time of the turning. They were talking about the time of the turning since like 2019. And I had no idea what they were talking about. They were talking about it so much that I got annoyed. I was like, what is this? Why do you keep talking about this? Because it wasn't very evident at that point, and then COVID happened, and then I was like, "Oh, thank you for giving me a bunch of heads up that things was about to change in a massive way." So I was ready. I was ready on the ready. Um, March 2020, that thing happened by May because I'd already been given so much information about it. 2 months later, I had sold my car, canceled my health insurance, 'cause I was not coming back to the United States. I didn't need to be paying 400, 600, whatever it was for health insurance. Packed everything in storage, got a one-way ticket. I was in Mexico by first week of June because I was ready. And that was I had woken up prior lifetimes. I didn't become a multi-dimensional artist like polymath, all those. I didn't learn all this shit in this lifetime. I learned how to open up my prior life memories. I didn't teach myself how to play piano. I followed my instinct, my intuition. I bought a piano. I got out of the box, plugged it in, and recorded for 7 minutes and went, "What the fuck?" Once you learn how to open up your prior life memories and skills, gets very weird and fun. Very weird and fun.
That's fascinating because it was summer 2020 that I went to Mexico for the first time as well, right after COVID hit, went to Mexico. So interesting synchronicity of our paths and we met in person for the first time some point around then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah. I had just arrived into Mexico at that moment. Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear a little more about your views on reincarnation. It sounds like you have quite a deep sense of the soul being immortal and traveling some kind of many lifetime journey. Could you share more about that?
Yeah, again, this is gonna go in the I don't know bucket. Because my sense and the way that when I really press my guides about how this works, it's frustrating because a lot of the time the answer that I get back is like, your mind does not understand anything but linear time. For us to properly be able to answer this, we're going to have to expand your consciousness beyond linear time. Because to say that there is a soul that is tracing a timeline is just not that. It's just not that neat and perfect. So that is still, frankly, how I conceive of it. But I have to hold what they told me, which is so I don't know. I I can't give you any more wisdom than that because my consciousness can't really hold it yet. I can feel it in certain moments energetically, how when I've been able to like shift my frequency and suddenly find myself living in a reality that's very different than the what I was living in 3 months prior. I was like, oh, I'm on a different timeline. I have different people around me. I have not necessarily like the world still looks the same most generally, but the way I'm moving through it, who I'm moving through it with, the things that are happening in my life are of a quality that would have seemed impossible previously. So that's what I call a timeline shift. So timelines are woven into this soul reincarnation thing in a way that I wish I could tell you. I could drop into channel, but it might get scary.
Do you think in this new era, it's likely that physical life will be extended a lot, or that we may even realize that physical death is not a necessity?
So I'm going to defer to Lee Harris on this. If anybody has not already encountered his work, he does an incredible monthly update. which is incredibly helpful for navigating what's about to show up for you. Super useful for making your monthly plan. He released a book, a channeled book, with Regina Meredith, and she asked a lot of in-depth questions about this. So what his guides say is that this generation, people on the planet right now, probably the younger you are, the longer you'll live. Um, I'm hoping I'm going to live to about 115, 2095. I'm making plans for my 80s. I'm going to have a stand-up career, but I'm not going to do it till I'm 80. I'll have a lot of material. Probably going to forget all of it, but I got good notes, so it'll be okay. But even 115, I don't know if I would want to live much longer than 115. I definitely am not on the tip of let's live forever. I just do not like it. I don't like it. I don't want it. There's some really interesting Reddit. If you want to pass an afternoon on Reddit going down the wormhole of the I am a time traveler, there's one with Jerry the time traveler where um I incorporated in I'm basically gonna base book 2 of the trilogy that I'm writing with my AI agent right now. I'm using some of that world building from Jerry the Time Traveler on Reddit, because it's so good. It's an alternative reality in which, everybody decided we're not gonna talk about the history anymore, so definitely no astrology. No history. I don't know how you have a society without being able to talk about history, but they got rid of all their libraries, and that was Jerry's motivation for coming back to this time was he just wanted to sit in libraries and learn the history because all the history was wiped out. And they cured cancer. No, they cured everything but cancer. They cured they had some kind of nanobot thing that would just fix all your telomeres and you'd live forever unless you had cancer and certain varieties, and then you had to be super, super rich or you'd die. And I thought that was a hellscape. Just didn't like anything about that reality.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard some fascinating ideas that, for me also land in the I don't know bucket, but ideas that because our species deeply believes in the inevitability of physical death, that's part of what results in us dying and dying sooner. And so, yeah, I generally try to kind of find a balance between not fearing death. Like I've explored death deeply and had experiences that felt a lot like dying, with different medicines, especially with Bufo, like full release kind of experiences and stuff like that. But at the same time, I also try to let go of beliefs about that, oh, yeah, this body is definitely going to die around, by the time it's 80 or 90 and just be open to possibilities. Cause I do think we're at such an interesting point in history that the idea of just being open to like, hey, maybe I'll live hundreds of years and see the Great Pyramids be built again or something like that.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It is possible. It is possible. What I don't get down with specifically is I don't want to name his name. You know what I'm talking about. Million Dollar Man who's like the vampire who uses his son's blood. There's like a way that there's a huge shadow here, I'm sure that you are aware of. Yeah. Yes. Zoom says yes. um, so just like I'm curious what you see as the shadow of that pursuit.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think all the kind of information out there that I'm somewhat aware of that again, I don't know I I don't know how factual this information is, but it seems like there's enough of it out there that it seems very likely that there are these kind of cults of people who are drinking, you know, drinking blood or adrenochrome or whatever the stuff is to try to.
I don't know about that, but you know who I'm talking about, Brian? What's his bucket? The
I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, you don't know who I'm talking about? The dude who looks transparent. Some of your listeners are going to be shouting the name at the thing. He has like $1 million per year longevity routine. I just object. I object to narcissism in general. And that's one of its manifestations is completely like dedicating your life force to glorifying your own social media image instead of like, can you please give some of your money away? I would be so happy if you give some of your money away. It's just immoral for you to be that rich and self absorbed. You're causing trouble that you don't appreciate. I feel like I'm in deep water here, but I just don't consider it to be moral to be a billionaire. There is a point at which you're so rich that you do need to distribute that back to your employees, to your society, to marginalized people. Like you have a moral obligation to spend that money on something that is not extending your bodily life. He's probably going to get I'm gonna shut my mouth now. I have a lot of anger at the number of billionaires who are glorified in our culture for doing things that are so obviously self-centered.
Fair enough, yeah. I That may be an interesting segue to talk about superabundance, which you mentioned in your bio. I'm curious what does that mean to you for people to taste superabundance?
Yes. So people need to experience the thing, not just talk about it with words and in their mind. So, but let me first distinguish between abundance and superabundance. Abundance is the stuff that we associate with billionaires. It's all the fancy stuff that whatever it is, 17 bedroom home, whatever fancy car you want to name. It's the distraction of let's just shove more stuff down the stuff hole and that will keep the pain away, but it doesn't. Um, as opposed to superabundance, which is the things that there's a certain there's a certain subset of physical material things that all people deserve. Does everybody deserve a Gulfstream jet? No, we ain't got parking space for all that. We can't make that many jets. We don't have enough resources for everybody to have a Gulfstream jet, right? So I'm talking about the absurd extreme, and you do have to decide for yourself what does everybody deserve, what does everybody not deserve. And then there's things like shoes and organic food and a home, a roof that does not leak, clean water, clean air, the things that our constitutions around the world have always enshrined as the fundaments of society. But somewhere along the way, that stuff all got tangled up. And we don't have a world in which everybody has clean air and clean water. We don't have a world in which everybody has food that is free of toxins or a pot to cook it in or a spoon to cook it in that is not toxic. Like walk down any supermarket kitchen aisle in the world and you will find toxic cookware, toxic spoons, and toxic food. So if we just keep it within the realm of food, tasting, this is why I'm saying tasting superabundance. Um, I had an experience in Los Angeles where I was really stressed out one of the days. I had had a really big weekend. It was actually the weekend I went to the Lee Harris workshop in Los Angeles. And afterwards, I was driving around. And that, LA, not the easiest city to stay grounded and chill in. But I had packed this lovely little dinner box for myself. And it was, apologies to all vegans, but it was pate. It's a very, very it's dense nutrition. It's organic. It was very high quality. And even if you are a vegan, you need this. You might be taking it in the form of a capsule so you don't taste it. But for me, I'm like, if you're going to eat it, you should taste it. I was eating this liver and I could literally feel in real time my hypervigilant, like panic settle down, just settle down. I didn't have to go to fast food. I didn't even, most of the restaurants that you go to, they're cooking for Instagram and they're cooking for good reviews. They're not cooking for the health of your body. unfortunately. Even very, very, very fancy, the fanciest, you can go to a Michelin star restaurant. If I went into their kitchen, I would bet you lots of money they would be using seed oils. Are you up on seed oils? Should we talk about seed oils?
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So prior to about 1950s, when our whole food system got industrialized, there were no grapeseed, there was no quote unquote vegetable oil. What even is that? Corn oil, canola oil. All of these seeds have to be soaked in a solvent made of a petrochemical called hexane. Hexane is not listed on your ingredients because they say, well, we evaporated it all off. Doesn't matter. What's left over after that hexane treatment is an oil that our bodies prior to 1950s has never encountered before. So it has, you probably heard of the difference between omega 3s and omega 6s. Seed oils are very high in omega 6s, which is associated with a lot of inflammation in the body, cholesterol, heart attack, diabetes. It inflames the whole body to be eating these seed oils. You can go to a very, very fancy restaurant, spend a lot of money for your dinner, and still be getting seed oils. And I travel a lot. Thank you, Zoom. With third emoji, thumbs up. I travel a lot and I always come home feeling like crap, like stressed out from the trip, spent a lot of money, and I can tell my body has not been nourished, dehydrated, just bad. So I had to take over and learn how to eat basically out of the hotel mini fridge, which doesn't sound glamorous at all. But no cooking, just eating things. There is properly prepared food that you can get delivered from Whole Foods or any other natural food grocery that is not ultra processed. Your food does need to be prepared. It does not need to be ultra processed. So since making that shift, my trips have been so much better. So much better. Hey, superabundance.
So when you mention that you create experiences where people taste superabundance, how does that connect to what you're saying, and how does it connect to Convivvium, and is there a broader definition here, or is it really about food, or what's the broader
Well,
sense?
the food is the most direct way to experience. Well, maybe not the most. We're also going to be so at Convivium, it's a multi-sensory experience of the world that I want everybody to be living in as quickly as possible. Is it going to be 10 years down the road? Is it going to be 50 years down the road? I don't know. I'm making this little oasis of how I see us living, a little hyper vortex of what it can be like to be in community together because we have to have these little inflection points and people have to experience it fully embody it. It's 4 nights and 5 days, and from the moment that you arrive until you leave us, it is highly curated to be like, oh, it can be like this all the time. Nothing here is fancy. It's not abundance, it's not Gulfstream jets. It's like there's really good nut milk and beet juice shots, and there's like a mushroom cordyceps reishi latte. Like, do you even want your coffee or do you want your tea? We'll probably have coffee because some people really like that's one of their plant medicines. So that's great. But it's also an opportunity to move into some other ways. Like, can you just move your ladder of addictions up a rung? One more rung. Can you trade coffee for a fresh made Pepita sunflower latte and just see what is the maybe your body doesn't want that. Maybe it wants the beet juice shot. Maybe it wants, but this level of quality is rarely presented. The level of food there is going to be outrageous. I'm head chefing. I'll be designing the menu. It will be appropriate for vegans and vegetarians. It'll be grain free. It also will have meat in it because I've tried many times, but my body's not ready to go vegetarian. I probably will go vegetarian at some point, but I can't like decide with my mind that it's time to become vegetarian. I will do it when it's time to do it. But not everybody's there yet, and I'm gonna meet everybody where we are at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, beautiful. That's amazing, and you had also written about something like reweaving the sacred fabric of society. And so, how does the culture of Convivvium look like?
Yeah. So I was inspired very much by the gathering of the mystery schools, primarily in Egypt and Eleusis, and the way in which they were a hypervortex that shaped culture. So, just a brief little history on Eleusis in particular, and I highly recommend The Immortality Key by Brian Murarescu. If anybody hasn't caught up on his stuff, you don't even need, you can just get the 3 hour Lex Friedman interview if you don't want to read the whole book and get the big gist of it. But there was a time in which the priestesses, the priests and the priestesses were consulted for every governmental decision. There was an oracle that had an enormous amount of influence on the direction. And at that time, for 2,000 years, you know what it is to carry a tradition on for 2,000 years? That's wild. The mystery schools, 2 millennia. They've been gone at roughly 1,600 years. It was a gradual erosion. The temples were eventually totally destroyed, but it was a gradual erosion of their power over about 400 years. Um, in any case, the people who came together in that hypervortex were everybody from Cicero, the playwrights, Marcus Aurelius was an initiate, one of the most famous emperors of Rome, incredibly influential to this day. His writings are still very relevant. Um, the priestesses were running it. It was the artists and it was also the scientist. Pythagoras was so affected, impressed by the mystery schools that he started his own dedicated to math. And his name, Pythagoras, is not his given name. He's probably Joe. Pythia was his tutor. He credited a woman, Pythia, which means dragon, by the way, uh, for for everything that he became. So I want to bring that group together. It's the cultural organizers, the people who are the sacred activists, mathematicians, scientists, artists, this rebridging of art and science. It's time. The mystery schools, they held these things in secret, and we're not recreating another secret society. We don't need to keep the secrets apart from each other. This is the time of the synthesis. So that's what we're going to be doing is creating an unconference format, an emergent format. Anybody can show up. It's not like we have speakers and attendees. Literally everybody that's on the premises can propose a session. And then we all vote, and the organizers will then distribute it into all the different spaces. And everybody can find each other. The conference is structured not as a conference, but as this emergent unconference structure so that the people that are interested in the same things on the same day can show up and sit on a sofa across from each other. They have the best fire pit. There's a round fire pit that can seat about 20 people on the first level and 40 if we go double. We can sit around fire and talk about stuff late into the night. I'm so excited. This is the stuff. Picking a venue has all these little nooks and crannies. The venue probably has 20 different little hidey holes of like sofa areas, many different fireplaces, salons, indoors and out. Mexico in December has fantastic weather, so we'll be very comfortable outdoors. And then there's an incredible jhana hall. Jhana meaning like meditation. It has acoustics, so a very long delay. And the other way that's very direct is through our voices, singing together, chanting together. So I'll be in there doing my thing, um, making interdimensional portals open. We can hope.
That's amazing. Thanks for that. That sounds like a really visionary and beautiful design for an event. Um, I wanted to share a little about how I see abundance just to see how it lands for you. Before I do that, I wanted to make one quick note about an earlier point in the conversation where we were talking about the shadows of life extension. And I just wanted to be sure people were clear that if I didn't make it clear, I was going to say that the kind of any kind of like dark cultish practices that involve like sacrifice or drinking. Yeah. Things that I was mentioning, I'm not in favor of, not in favor of anything like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thumbs down on that for me. Um, Still try to hold all those beings in universal love. That's the aspiration, at least, is to omnidirectional love. It seems to me is kind of the alchemical keystone that leads toward wholeness. That is how we can heal everything, is by holding it in love. But I don't have to. That doesn't mean I have to agree with everyone's life choices and approaches and such. But to reflect a little on abundance, I'm curious how this lands for you. One of the deepest revelations of abundance for me in recent years has been, well, there was a moment really where I was out in nature and I saw this squirrel just sitting on a tree branch, like just kind of looking like a cute squirrel. And it just really dawned on me like, wow, this is truly an unpriceable moment. Like you cannot put a price on this squirrel, and actually you can't put a price on any experience. And it just kind of really dawned on me that while money may be a useful tool, it's fundamentally built on this fiction that we can actually price and quantify the preciousness of any experience of life. And that just kind of opened up this deeper sense of, oh, like every moment is actually the fullness of infinite artistry, a never before seen artwork from the heart of infinite imagination, just opening into more of itself. It's never been seen before. It'll never be seen again. Every moment's like an utterly precious jewel served up on a silver platter if we're able to open to it and able to see it. And that's kind of become one of my favorite ways to feel into infinite abundance, just like the infinite artistry, the ever refreshing kind of splendor that is truly unpriceable all around us. Uh, Curious if that brings up anything for you.
Well, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the spreadsheet model of the world that we inhabit, in which a forest is priceable by its board feet of lumber, which means we must kill the forest in order to extract its value, which is where our national parks are mostly, how those parks are viewed through the eyes of a capitalist, like it has to be dead to have value.
Yeah, it's fascinating to look around us and see all the effects of having the profit motive be such an enshrined and systematized incentive in society. I mean, it's literally like the algorithm that, if you see civilization itself as kind of a giant AI and that's running an algorithm called capitalism, it's like the 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 central incentive of that algorithm for most of these organizations is just to maximize profit for shareholders. And so, that was able to unlock a lot of cool generativity, but I think hopefully we can, yeah, move beyond that and discover wiser, incentive structures.
Yeah. Well, we've lost track of the Commonwealth. This is a big portion of the concept of superabundance, that there is land that is owned by the commons because we can't benefit from it unless it is owned in that way where we all can experience it, we all can share it. I mean, as an American, our experience of the Commonwealth is so narrow. The way that the national parks are presented to us, regulated, um, it's such a colonized concept. You can't carry anything out of the forest is considered to be this like gold standard of morality, is don't take anything, don't take anything out of the forest. It's like you're so divorced from the way that we all used to live. You think that it's moral to drive to a grocery store and buy bananas from Chile instead of eating the fruit that's in the forest that is owned by your people. What is right about that? There's something right about it. It had its time and place. I don't mean there's nothing right about it, but it has it has served its time and place, and this time of turning will be redefining new cultural norms around things like that, because the indigenous relationship to the forest is that we all care for it. We don't pay an entry fee to get in. We all garden it. We all understand our place in it. We are reverent. We make offerings. The tragedy of the commons is completely a colonial concept. The indigenous rules of harvesting prevent a tragedy of the commons. Shocking. Guess what? If everybody goes to the forest and observes those rules, it won't be overharvested. It is possible to create your society in such a way that even small children understand very simple rules about not harvesting things that shouldn't be harvested further. It's really not that complicated. It's just quote unquote it's just an ontological collapse. Once you have the ontological collapse, many things get much simpler.
Do you have any thoughts on how people will create off ramps out of the current dominant system? And this is already happening in many ways, but any thoughts on how we'll see these kind of parallel paradigms and parallel civilizations kind of emerging at the edges? Yeah.
Well, don't underestimate the power of all life coming from the same root. When we're genuinely tapped in to spirit, if I'm talking to my guides, however I conceive of them, whatever I call them, through whatever framework works for me, given my karma and religious upbringing, blah, blah. And maybe somebody on the other side of the world doesn't speak the same language, has a totally different thing. But all life coming from the same root means that we're going to come to a harmonic coordination between us. We don't need to use the same words. We don't need to say agree. We don't even need to agree. But as long as it's truly coming from spirit, there's a level of synchronicity and orchestration in the organization. We don't need a top down planning process. Like, do not discount this force. It is massive. And my guys this week were talking about the force of a dandelion coming through the concrete. You know, sometimes I feel so small and I get so mad. I'm like, really? I'm just a dandelion. I don't want to be an oak tree. And they're like, okay, well, look at an oak tree. Look at the places where the capping of mother's life force is the most complete. Imagine Singapore or New York or any of these massive cities where the entirety of the land, for the most part, is capped with concrete, infiltrated with pipes and metal and all these things. Very, very difficult for life to take root because even a single seed, they're like, the control structures know that even a single small seed starts the cycle of life. You've probably seen these videos. It's like, well, if humans just drop dead off the planet, it would only be 50 years before Fifth Avenue was full of trees. The first seed that penetrates that little dandelion that goes down between the cracks of the sidewalk, that will open up space for the oak seed, and the oak seed will pick up the whole asphalt. Like, it is not long before Mother Nature takes over. That force is steady. It is slow, but we also have this massive turning of the heavens right now, setting up this incredible ballet. All the forces that have been moving against us, like as a light worker, you know how hard it is to have an Instagram account? Don't take that for granted. The tide has been against you. The forces of capitalism and narcissism have been against you. The capping of the concrete has been against you. Your seed has not wanted to be planted on this ground because they know how powerful your seed is. But it has been planted. And those forces which have been against will be in our direction, in our lifetime. I don't know precisely how soon, and it's not going to be everything all at once. We would know how to deal. But one by one, these currents that have been against us are going to turn around and move in our direction.
I love that. Thank you. It reminds me of that saying, they tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds, which is a, a good one. And it makes me feel like there is this bottom up force that, like you're saying, can't be underestimated. The geyser like volcanic eruption of spirit into form, and it just makes me feel like beings trusting that aliveness, trusting that upsurging aliveness, being willing to trust the flow of aliveness and follow that current. That is what will weave this kind of mycelium, is already weaving this kind of mycelium, this fractaling force that is nonlinear and, like you say, synchronistic and wildly intelligent, but not legible to existing legacy paradigms. Yeah.
Have you been tracking the rise of the telepathy tapes?
A little bit, a little bit. Would you like to share anything about that?
Well, that's another. It's upwelling from so many different places at the same time. So telepathy tapes chronicles primarily the stories of autistic kids, but it's bigger than that. It's also communication with animals and telepathy writ large. But the star of the show are the autistic kids who have taken on very, very difficult incarnations. And she speaks of them basically as like master souls that they're like, you do not get these kinds of telepathic gifts if you lie. We're living in a society that trains us to lie from the time that we're children. We all lie. Autistic kids don't lie. They don't lie. And they're in there. Those kids are in there. They're incredibly brilliant. This is total spoiler alert. You should for sure hit pause if you don't want me to tell you, but it won't ruin the story as far as I'm concerned. Um, these kids have figured out how to communicate beyond language. Their struggle is that they have all of this brilliance and connection to source, and to talk to us, they have to translate it into a language. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I could just pass this whole book to you, which they do. They connect telepathically. It's called the Hill. They connect telepathically at a certain time, and they find there are people that are interested in the same things. They're like, oh, would you like to learn Hebrew? Yeah. And so once these kids start to be able to break through and they learn how to spell, it's this very tedious process of pointing to letters one at a time. They're so disconnected from their bodies that they've connected telepathically with each other, and they have led this incredibly rich interior life. And when they finally break through and have assistance to spell so they can communicate with the rest of us, their parents are just astonished. They're like, "You speak 6 languages? We didn't even know you spoke English." It's wild. It's wild. So the fact that that's the number one podcast right now, the word is getting out. It is unstoppable. The snowball will be an avalanche, and the snowball is already rolling. We're in season 2.
Yeah, that does feel like a cultural watershed moment, the dam breaking open.
It's the
And
dam breaking open for sure. It's going to
mm,
break open the education systems. And the way this is another thing Lee talks about in his latest book, The New Human. I'm going to say that's the name of his book. Um, the way in which the education system and government are completely not even parallel. They're like the same thing to us. The public education system is dictated by government, funded by government, enforced by government. My grandmother was like, you don't go to school today, the truant officer is going to come get you. And I believed her. So I went to school. I don't know if there's really truant officers, but I believed that there was. And I was pretty sure they was going to drive a government car that was black and white and they was going to put me in the back of it. So I went to school, government school. And our schools groom us to be abused by the capitalistic system. The concept of a permanent record, where'd that come from? I lived it in school. I lived in terror of something going on my permanent record. I did not want to be called into the principal's office because I was sure they were going to write it on my permanent record. Was it permanent? No. As soon as I graduated school, I never even saw this record, but even if it did exist, it disappeared. So it wasn't very permanent. But the concept of a permanent record had been seeded in me, a bad seed. And guess what? When you grow up as an American, you do have a permanent record. It's called your credit report. And I lived in fear of my credit report for about 20 years until I did enough trauma clearing to excavate all that bullshit. I've got an article coming out this month about that whole process of what happened when I left the United States, but after my company fell apart, the whole fiction of the credit report and how I had to be a perfect citizen and pay all my bullshit bills, even if they were actually incorrect and totally the fault of Verizon. Verizon, you get no love from me. Um, but I paid bills I didn't even know just because I wanted a stupid credit score. Anyway, long story short, my credit score is crap. But if you don't need credit, you don't need a credit score, and you do not need credit. You do not need credit. Credit's one of the worst. You know how many religions have the sense to tell us that debt is a bad idea? It's not that difficult of a concept.
Yeah, here. I think people don't speak enough about the psychoenergetic toll of debt. Like it seems like it doesn't weigh on some people as heavily as others, although maybe they're just
Ooh.
repressing the extent to which it
They're
weighs on.
disembodied.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I would assume there's at least some variance because we are all wired differently. But for me, at least, when I had significant debt at one point, it was like a permanent kind of dark cloud on some level in my psyche, and I just felt like, what? This is. I feel enslaved. This is an enslavement, and I need to get rid of
Stealing from
this
your You are
quickly.
stealing from your future self. How is that ever a good idea? How is it ever a good idea to steal from your future self? It is not we cannot continue with a debt-based society. The implications of this are vast, vast. We don't have time to go into all of the economic theory, and it's not my wheelhouse because I don't really look at that global scale. I look at my personal perspective, how to run a house, how to run a home. I was raised by a single grandmother on food stamps, which is $88 a month. My grandmother got $88 a month to feed two people for a month. 88. That is not a lot of numbers in that number. Anyway, she did it. And so I don't really want to talk about the macroeconomic. It is just like take your sovereignty back. What would you do differently if you were not afraid of your credit score? What would you do differently? What job would you not take because of your credit score? What if you were not in debt? What if you got out? You can get out. I got out in college. I did a long time ago. The only way in hell, this poor girl from Arkansas who had no help from my family, none, not because they didn't love me, they didn't have no money. I got out. I traveled the world. I filled up a passport. I own my time. Did you hear me tell you? I make music. I paint. I sit in my hammock. I cook. I have a garden. There's tomato seedlings. Like I live a real life. I ain't fancy. I drive a $4,000 car and I don't care. I don't need a Mercedes to tell me I am alive on the planet. And any people who I do not impress because they don't like my car, my life is better without them. It's a screening device. If anybody comes to my house and thinks my beautiful house is not impressive enough to them, they have a different journey. I love you. Goodbye.
Woo! Well said. Amen, sister.
Have to get out of this. We have to free ourselves, and money is a huge piece of it. What do we eat? Money's a prayer. What are you spending your money on? Do you like who you give your money to? Do you like your body? Do you like what you put in it? Do you have the money to buy food? Food is expensive. Real food is expensive. It just is.
Yeah, I find it so strange that, we the US government, for example, almost $40 trillion in debt. And it's like, what kind of example is that setting for our children when, the supposed leaders of our society are 40 trillion in debt? It's like, it's an astronomical.
Your taxes go to the bank. Your taxes go to debt service.
Yeah, I mean, it's a preposterous calamity. It's
Will collapse. I
ugh.
don't know how long it will take. I pray that it will be gentle as possible. I mean, my deal with the universe, what I stand on is that we learn lessons. They cost what they cost. They're always worth what they cost. And the universe gives it to us in as gentle of a package as we can get so that we actually get the message. Sometimes the messages come through very strong and they cost a lot because that's what it took to pierce through the veil. Not punishing, just this is what it took for you to get it.
I like that. I like that outlook, and yeah, I mean, a couple more thoughts on that. Just, just the fact that people still believe that it's normal to get a massive mortgage and to be paying off three or $400,000 over the course of 30 years, and to have that weight in the back of their mind that I owe somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like, and people talk about good debt, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess if you have the constitution for that, maybe, but not for no thanks for me. Nope, I'm not. Look, I'm done with debt. Like I
Messed up your children.
don't want debt.
Maybe
Yeah.
you didn't steal for yourself, but you stole from your children
Mhm.
because your children can't afford a house. Maybe you can pass one of the house. Maybe you only have one kid and you can pass your house on to your kid, but if you have two kids or three kids, better have two or three houses. It don't work that way. Like the geometric math, it just doesn't work that way. It just can't, you know? The biggest contributor to that price of housing is the availability of money in the system. So it like house prices are not connected to intrinsic value. Google put an office in Austin, a whole bunch of other tech companies, the whole market just went boom. How much money is in your economy is how much the prices of the house is. That's it. That's really the biggest number one correlation between. And when you've got debt as an ingredient there, it just adds lighter fuel to that fire. It's always going to be the case that there's a correlation between how much money is in the economy and the house. But because we put like that rapid grow, we just took a situation which could have been manageable, but because debt is introduced, it breaks the system at some point in time. When you just roll the clock ahead enough cycles, this is why the ancients told us don't build your society on debt. It takes a long time for it to destroy you, but it will inevitably destroy you. We've watched this cycle again and again and again. It's not going to have a different outcome. It just can't. It can't.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's any way things like cryptocurrency could lead toward new forms of currency, new forms of economic system that are not debt based or that have, different logics built into the very fabric of money.
I don't I haven't seen it yet, right? Like I have a lot of enthusiasm for alternative money systems. Again, I'm down here at the like house, garden, pots of food. That's really my expertise. But I am looking for it's really got to happen in the community level because you could create the most wonderful crypto, but if the market that you're within decides to grab it and use it as a lottery ticket, as every crypto that's on the planet that I'm aware of, um, if the community decides to abuse the instrument, how do you like, is there a way to defend against that? There must be, but I don't know what I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking for it. I'm hoping the people who are talking about this and really do have the gift for understanding the monetary, please come to Convivvium. Send me an email. I'm going to meet you. I ain't seen it yet, but it will emerge.
What does it mean to you to be a priestess? I wanted to ask you.
Such a lovely question. Um, So my guides say that the office of the priestess has always been filled all the way throughout history. There have been women who held this energetic archetype of the polyglot, the polymath. You can look at, I mean, these are sort of the examples I'm going to name are not exactly priestesses, but they are what society did with those women. So you've got the courtesans in France. They became incredibly greedy, well dressed. The society pages in the newspaper back in the day when they had engraved portraits of people. This is before Instagram. Um, that same energy in us that loves Instagram existed in that time period, but they had newspapers and they had a little black and white engraved. There's something about that seems so quaint. But those women were the same energetic archetype. They could sing, they could dance, they usually spoke a bunch of languages, they entertained government. If it's the same people as the mystery school, who were they with? They were with the artists, they were with the cultural creatives, is what I call the group of the people who are orchestrating the government. Obviously, that's been very polluted, but the people who shape society, who make these decisions of how society is run, um, the artists, the scientists, like that, illiterati, Illuminati, whatever you call it, those people have always existed in every society, but this was the shadow expression of that same group, right? Because they do an essential thing that every society needs. So you also have the geisha, the maiko in Japan, and they made lots and lots of money as well. They preserved the traditional arts. They preserved certain musical instruments, and it's the same list of skills. They played music. They spoke a bunch of languages. They entertained the governmental high-ranking men, the people that were making the decisions. So that group, those people who come into an incarnation with this weird skill set that I have, this like synthesizer, the hostess with the mostest, the person who can talk to anybody in the room. We're like ambassadors of our culture, preservers, and we hold the space. We're the feminine yin holders of the energy of the space. Because if you can imagine, in a restaurant, a group of a bunch of powerful men, the energy in that room, we all know the energy in that room. And then a geisha walks in, and the whole temperature, the texture of the space immediately changes. The vocabulary that those men, the sweetness, they might go from a very curmudgeonly, as soon as the elegance of a geisha walks in, she just commanded the space. That's what she does. That's her job. Everybody's hair stood up on the back of their neck. That's what a priestess is to me. A lot of people use it in a different way, but that's what it is to me.
Cool, and I wanted to ask you, yeah, thank you for that. I wanted to ask you about the work you do with people one-to-one as well, and if the priestess relates to that for you, or what archetypes are most active there?
Well, I'm a priestess probably first. Priestess is the container of all these other things, right? So, my work with my clients has taken several different formats, and it's in the midst of transforming again because I'm about to come through with this version of an offering that is about using food, our relationship to food, to help repair our ability to nourish our body. There's a lot of shadow work. There's a lot of stepping into your deservingness. There's a lot of like superabundance. What is that? Creating a home in which you create your own little hyper vortex of superabundance. You start to live inside of that, and then you start to carry it with you even when you travel and leave your city. It's a skill set. It's a skill set. And through the fractal of our relationship to food, we learn a lot about how we are on other levels. It changes the way we are in relationship. It changes the way that we lead. It changes what we prioritize. It's like a re-architecting, realignment of our whole energetic, not only because our body is our foundation, like starting to come into relationship with your temple. We're not for this is not a mystery school where we're building temples, except we are. The body is the temple. We are rebuilding the temple in our body. And when you wake up in the morning one day and you go, I have never felt like this before. Or I felt like this, but it was so long ago that I can't even remember. Like, was I a child the last time I felt this amount of energy? Yeah, but I don't even know. I don't even know. Was I 7, 6? But you start to like anchor into the strength of the parts of you that are now integrated. We hear this word integration, it becomes annoying. Integration. But when you repair your consciousness, when you repair your fascia, when you actually are a coherent, energetic being that is not leaking your energy, you feel a way you have never felt before. You recover past life memories. You recover, like, this journey brings all the pieces back to you that you need exactly when you need them.
Beautiful. And what about the in-person touch component? You mentioned that your hands had become sensitized, and so you also do kind of energy work with people in person?
I
Or
do. I do. It's deep in the fascia. So I honestly wish I knew what it is. I could tell you. It's not Reiki. It's not craniosacral. Good Lord knows I tried to learn cranial and I was like, that's on a different channel. Um, but it is a way that I'm following the body, and it's very difficult to describe with words, to be honest. Like I'm wondering if I can show you visually better, like finding the places in your body that are connected. Like there's a tension line from here to here, and my fingers know exactly where on the body those most significant tension lines are for you in particular, so that we can release. It's like releasing an old energetic exoskeleton. You're molting off. The most extreme one that I had, um, the lovely gentleman couldn't walk for a little while. It's very common, especially if I'm doing a multi-hour assisted journey with medicine, that one of those energetic exoskeletons will come off. And it's very clear. They know it. There's no mistaking it. They're like, what just happened to me? I'm like, you just shed, you just shed an exoskeleton, and I keep them calm, because if it's never happened to you, it's a very strange feeling. Because your energy body starts to be visible to you. It's always been there, but if you've been disembodied, we all have been disembodied. As you're coming out of those layers of disembodiment and feeling sensations you've never felt before, your body starts to feel like it's connected. I always compare it to the Mr. Potato Head, where the little white plastic legs are not plugged into the potato body, and we just plug them in. We just plug them in, and when you get your leg plugged into your hip socket and connected through that X point, I'm trying to dance around. I'm going to stop dancing around. My sincere apologies for breaking in here. Unfortunately, due to the climate, we'll call it, of 2025, we cannot include this information, Editor Cris, who woke up the next morning and was like, oh, there's a reason I don't talk about this. Cooler heads have prevailed. My apologies. Because it's really important to connect the body back together. And then there's an energetic flow that the man will feel. I also work with women, but I do specialize in men. Um, there's a flow of energy that comes through your body that you're like, what is that? What is that? Never felt that before. And then I'll have them stand up, and they're standing differently because I have guided the nerves and the ligaments that were out of alignment to hang in. Like there's channels where those things are designed to be. And through the process of living, they aren't in their correct channels, and my body can feel where and what the most important ones are. And we get those rehung back on the skeleton so they fit in the grooves where they're supposed to go. And now that nerve is no longer pinched, and now that tendon is no longer pinched, and information can flow. It's more than just blood flow, it's more than just nerve flow, even. Like the fascia now is communicating, and there's a rush, there's a whooshing. Eventually, there's pleasure. At first, it's very intense and not that comfortable. But after a certain number of sessions, you're just like, oh, this feels really good. That pleasure pain thing that we know about happening in sex, that like as arousal goes up, your pain level goes up as well. Those two go up in tandem. And then you get an experience that is incredibly cathartic. So That's what I do in my one-on-one sessions. And people walk out and look at the stars and are like, I'm not in the same universe that I was in. What happened?
I mean, that's astonishing. That's got to be the most astounding description of a one-to-one work that I've ever heard. I mean, that was an amazing bridge building. I'm sure people who hear that will be I mean, I hear that and I'm like, wow, I want to experience that. I'm curious, did the did the medicines kind of teach you that? Are you also with the medicine when you're having these experiences? Are they guiding you?
Not. No, it's not a good idea for me to be with the medicine because here's the last time I was in the medicine with a client at the same time we merged consciousness. We actually merged consciousness. Um, I didn't know how to do it, but my client knew how to do it. Like I could feel it was like spiraling into each other and then something clicked and he could see through my eyes. He was looking at himself with my eyes. So it was a little intense. I honestly didn't properly know how to hold that much energy. It's something that I would love to do with friends and with lovers. I would love to merge consciousness again, but you get your karma tangled up with your client when you do that. And I don't know how to hold that level. It's too much. I'm too energetically connective. I'm like a little octopus that so I no longer do medicine with clients. It was great, but it was not great. Yeah, long story. There's a long story of how badly that went, but it was fine. We got it all cleaned up, but it was when you get your karma tangled up with your client, this is like if I was going to write a Priestess the Missing Manual book for all the other very deeply energetically sensitive priestesses out there, I'd be like, there are some pitfalls. Do not sleep with your client under any circumstances. Let's have a chat about why that's a really bad idea. Okay.
Live and learn, live and
Live
learn.
and learn.
What
Maybe one
what
of these days I'll write it.
I'm curious what kind of medicine clients take with you if you're open to share?
There's fortunately two medicines that are legal here in Mexico that we can talk about. Mushrooms, as long as they are wild picked, they're a little bit in the gray area because if you have farmed mushrooms, that's not legal. So mushrooms and bufo is also legal in Mexico. I do not offer it with clients, but I do think it's worth. I use it personally, and it is an incredible medicine. So if anybody feels called to that in Mexico, a lot of people don't know that it's available here.
Yeah, that's where I've had my most profound Bufo journeys at Cumancaya in Mexico, which is also where I got married in an ayahuasca ceremony, which was a wild experience. But
Wild.
yeah, yeah, was never expected to have my mother sitting a few feet away from me while I'm purging up our family's ancestral karmic burdens.
Go, mama. Go, you.
Yeah. Couple more questions for you as we draw toward a close. This one's kind of a hard hitter. What is reality? What is this that we're experiencing in your estimation?
Mm. I feel like my guides have something to say about it because I don't have anything to say about it. You good with my guides coming in? All right. I didn't know this was going to happen. I'm a little nervous, but we'll get over it. I'll have to straighten my spine. I have no idea what's about to happen. I'm going to take off my glasses. All right. What is reality? Greetings. We bring tidings of joy and peace to all in the family of Jordan, all who are in the sound of his podcast, all who are in the sound of his influence. Your question, what is reality, comes to us and brings us a great sense of laughter for when you are on the other side in the respect of outside of linear time. Reality becomes the most deliciously complex, textured question, but not one which is here to be answered, one that is already present in your comprehension, or you are it. There is no ability to sense yourself as anything outside of reality. And yet, the texture of reality and the living through it, the ability to traverse a point, to trace the information, to create a trail of your inquiry is what it is that we are doing outside of time. We hope this explanation can be understood by those in the sound of our voice. What other questions would you like to bring?
If there was any message you were going to share with everyone in the world in this moment, what would it be?
Love. This word brings fear, it brings truth, it brings misunderstanding, it brings a reaching towards that which is your image of love, but which is an illusion. It brings up all of your obstacles to receiving the unconditional love that is the essence of reality. There is no distinction between the concept of unconditional love, source, truth, reality. These are all synonymous concepts. There is a great misunderstanding which you have been programmed with, which seeks to control others. It is a very deep control paradigm, which says that love which manipulates is love whatsoever. There is no love which manipulates. There is no such thing as conditional love. There is only unconditional love.
Hmm. Thank you for that beautiful answer. Are there any other words that you would like to share that could help humanity navigate the times ahead?
We would like to bring in the second piece of this teaching, which is the necessary discernment. If you live in a world with unconditional trust, you live in a world without truth. You live without an ability to set a boundary. This pairing of unconditional love with discernment. Another way of saying discernment is conditional trust. Your trust must be in responsiveness with the free will choices of the other beings whom you are sharing this space time reality with. Not all are motivated by the same information, not all are motivated by the same intention. And you must adjust your choices in your time space reality, for it is inherently limited. Without an understanding that you have incarnated into a limited body, you have only so much time, you have only so much breath, you have only so much ability to speak, only so much that you can say, only so much space you can share. You must make difficult choices about who you allow into your energetic field. You may love unconditionally from afar all beings on this planet. Can you let this be enough? Can you trust that your unconditional love is enough, such that you may set appropriate boundaries to protect your life force, such that you may live into your destiny, into your trust, so that you may taste superabundance in a peaceful home with those surrounded by your soul family? Can you allow yourself to deserve this much? We bid you joy, peace, the fortune of the fathers, the blessed of the mothers. Aho.
Aho. Thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful sharing, beautiful transmission. Thank you to your guides. And where can people find your work and your play if they would like to go deeper, Cris?
So my name, Cris, no H, Cris Beasley, no H.com, and Convivvium, Convivvium.org. That is the event where we will be tasting and singing and speaking superabundance in December. And Tepoztlan, Mexico, where I have my Kundalini awakening, the Copper Lined Hills, right next door to where Quetzalcoatl was born. And if you want to hear me sing through, those frequencies are at violetletters.com. No funky spelling or violet letters. I'm sure all the links will be in the description.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you and take good care.
Thank you, Jordan.